In 2008, the global economy collapsed. Banks failed. Millions lost their homes. Governments spent trillions to stop the bleeding. But what they didn't tell you is that the real damage wasn't the crash itself. It was what came after. The hidden scars that are still bleeding your wallet dry today in 2025. September 15, 2008. Lehman Brothers declares bankruptcy. 158 years of Wall Street history gone overnight. Within days, the entire financial system is on life support. The stock market hemorrhages 777 points in a single day, the largest point drop in history. Panic spreads like wildfire across every continent. World leaders scramble to prevent total economic collapse. Here's what actually happened. For years, banks had been packaging risky mortgages into securities. They called them safe investments. Rating agencies stamped them AAA. Pension funds bought them. Insurance companies bought them. Foreign governments bought them. But underneath it was all garbage. Subprime loans given to people who couldn't afford them. When housing prices stopped rising, the whole house of cards collapsed. Bear Stearns fell first in March, then Lehman in September. Then AIG needed $85 billion to survive. Merrill Lynch sold itself to Bank of America to avoid death. Washington Mutual failed. Wachovia failed. The dominoes were falling fast. Governments had two choices: let the system burn or print money they didn't have. They chose option 2. The U.S. government injected $700 billion through TARP. The Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to zero. They started buying assets directly. Quantitative easing, they called it. A fancy term for creating money out of thin air. Europe did the same. China launched a massive stimulus. Central banks worldwide coordinated the largest financial intervention in human history. They saved the banks. But here's what nobody talks about. They fundamentally changed how the economy works, and we're still living in that broken system today. Before 2008, global debt was already high. After 2008, it went parabolic. Governments borrowed trillions to fund bailouts and stimulus programs. Corporate debt exploded as companies took advantage of 0% interest rates. Household debt eventually recovered as people started borrowing again. By 2019, global debt hit $253 trillion. That's 3 times global GDP. Today, in 2025, it's even higher. This debt doesn't just disappear, someone has to pay it back. That someone is you through higher taxes, slower wage growth, and reduced government services. The 2008 bailout didn't fix the problem. It just moved the bill to future generations. Here's where it gets dark. The bailout saved the financial system, but it didn't save ordinary people. Homeowners lost $9.8 trillion in wealth during the crisis. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve's money printing inflated asset prices. Stocks recovered. Real estate recovered, but only people who owned assets benefited. If you were wealthy in 2008, you got wealthier. The S&P 500 went from 666 in March 2009 to over 4,000 by 2021. If you owned stocks, you multiplied your wealth 6 times. If you didn't own stocks, you got nothing. Wages barely grew. The median household took until 2016 just to get back to 2007 income levels adjusted for inflation. Young people got destroyed. Millennials entering the job market during the crisis earned less for the next decade. They bought homes later. They saved less for retirement. One recession permanently damaged an entire generation's economic prospects. Something broke in 2008 that never got fixed. Productivity growth. Before the crisis, productivity grew around 2.5% per year. After 2008, it dropped to 1.3%. That might sound small, but it's catastrophic. Productivity growth determines living standards. It's why each generation used to be richer than the last. When productivity growth halves, your children's living standards grow half as fast. Why did this happen? Business investment collapsed during the crisis and never fully recovered. Companies became risk-averse. They focused on stock buybacks instead of innovation. Labor markets changed. The gig economy exploded. Stable jobs with benefits became contract work with no security. Workers stopped moving between jobs as much. Geographic mobility declined. Occupational mobility declined. The dynamic, flexible economy that drove American prosperity for decades became rigid and stagnant. For over a decade after 2008, central banks printed money and inflation stayed low. Economists were confused. They expected inflation, but it never came. Until 2021. Suddenly, inflation exploded to levels not seen in 40 years. What happened? The money printing from 2008 to 2020 created the conditions. COVID stimulus was the match that lit the fuse. All that money sloshing around the system finally hit consumer prices. Your groceries cost more. Your rent costs more. Your gas costs more. Central banks raised interest rates to fight it. But now we're stuck. Rates are higher. Debt is massive. Governments spend huge portions of their budgets just paying interest. The next crisis will be even harder to fight because central banks already used all their ammunition in 2008. So here's the hidden impact of 2008 that nobody talks about. We didn't just survive a financial crisis, we fundamentally restructured the entire global economy. We chose to save the system by creating unlimited debt. We chose to inflate asset prices, which made the rich richer and everyone else poorer. We chose to sacrifice productivity growth, which means your kids will struggle more than you did. We chose to print money for over a decade, which created the inflation nightmare we're living through right now. Every economic problem you face today traces back to decisions made in those panic-filled months of 2008 and 2009. The crash lasted 2 years. The consequences will last generations, and that's the real hidden impact they never warned you about.